Well, hello, everybody. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. And yes, if my face looks a little banged up, that's because it is. Um, I was in Europe um, and single handedly uh, stopped a terrorist attack. And the other guy didn't make it. So anyway, I'm kidding. No, that's not what happened. But that makes a heck of a lot better story than going on a bike tour in Rome and using an e-bike and falling over and doing a face plant and spending 7 hours in the emergency room. I'll tell you what it does teach you. Yes, Italy has free healthcare, but it's not really free. Because I talked to a business owner who told me he pays about 50% of his wages or his dollars or whatever they use. Are going to taxes. And I sat in the emergency room for 7 hours, and there was probably 50 to 60 people in there because everybody comes to emergency when they have a problem. And yeah, you don't pay anything for it, and that's nice, but you are paying for it in costs. And the doctor left without signing my order. They wanted to keep me overnight in the hospital. Could you ever imagine the cost, how much it cost if something happened to you? And they just kept you overnight in the hospital because they didn't have the doctor's orders for this. And that's healthcare. Not impressed. So anyway, that's why I look like the elephant man. And but I went to the doctor, got my stitches out today, and he said, "Rick, you look fine. Everything's great." So it's all going to mend, and it just gives me more scars, like I don't have enough. So tonight we're going to talk about something really interesting to me because I ran for Secretary of State in Oregon in 2008, and fairness in voting is super important to me. Fairness and making sure that only citizens here who are supposed to be voting is really important to me. And we got there's a ballot measure on the Oregon ballot this November would change the way Oregonians vote. It's called ranked voting. And we're going to talk to a couple of gentlemen who are very concerned about this to give you a better idea about what it is. And recently, a number of people who are here undocumented is what they are, but they're here, and some of them, have the right to be here, but they don't have the right to vote. And it's found that there's hundreds of these folks, and probably that's just the tip of the iceberg, voting in Oregon elections. That's horrible. Not because these people are bad people, but they're not citizens. What the hell are you voting in an Oregon election, in any election in this country, if you are not a citizen of this country? Now, some of you think that's okay. I think you're full of shit. It's wrong. You have to be a citizen of that. No other country would let you vote if you weren't a citizen. And why in the hell are Americans allowing this to happen? We're going to talk about tonight. Brought to you by Family Dentistry out of Eugene, Oregon. Dr. Bratlin is really big on free speech. He's really big on conversations like this. He wants people to know what's going on out there, and so do I. Also, Albert Taylor, Endless Possibilities, an organization in Eugene, Springfield, works with people with different abilities, always looking for people to work with them. Right here in Helena, Montana, Greg Hinkle, former Oregonian, former Washingtonian. He's with New American Funding. If you're looking for a mortgage lender, he is your man. And also here in Helena, Montana, Montana Oral Surgery and Dental Implant Center. Yes, they have nothing to do with Oregon politics, but they sponsor our show because they think information is important, and they're great people. Also, troublemaker Matt McCarl with New Leaf Hyperbarics and Wellness Center. If you've never tried it, I wish to God I was home right now in Oregon because I'd be in the New Leaf Hyperbarics. He just had some horrible thing happen, had to have surgery on his arm, and his wound is healing up really quickly because of all the oxygen that he's breathing in that hyperbaric chamber. He said, "Rick, you should come back for a month." And it's like, Matt, I got a life and a job, so I can't. But anyway, he's a great guy. Check him out. If you say you saw this on Rick Dancer's show, he'll give you a deal the first time around. All right, let's get right to our topic. Joining me now, State Representative Ed Deal, House Number 17. We've had Ed on recently too, because I kind of like the dude. I don't know. I think you're, I know it's your first term and stuff, but you're like the real deal. And yeah, that's probably why you're named that, huh?
I did that.
Oh my God. If you were to
name.
ever, like, let's say, run for governor or something, that would be the greatest campaign slogan. Ed, the real deal. Dude, and I'm only going to charge you a couple $1,000 for
Oh,
what I just said.
wow,
right
what a
there.
bargain.
You know what I was going to do when I ran for Secretary of State? And I think I would be had been the governor by now if this had happened. I would have won that election. And I was going to put up signs up and down I-5 and have them say, go, go, and then really small Rick, and then dancer. So you drive down the highway and you see go-go dancer, for Secretary of State, and everybody go, I'm going to vote for the go-go dancer. I bet you $100 I would have won. And my staff loved it because they were all young people. But all the old geezers who, helped me with my campaign were like, a respectable guy can't do that. And I'm going, first of all, I don't know that I'm respectable. Second of all, I'm just here to win. And if being a go-go dancer gets me there, let's go. But Ed, I think you ought to look at that. You got the perfect name for that, Grant, what do you? Grant Johnson is just, he's my newest friend, and he's just getting into. He's kind of. I think what you are, Grant, I would call you a gadfly. You know what I mean? You're kind of a troublemaker, but you come in. You got a semi-pretty face, and you come across as a guy who's just, doing his homework, doing his work, which you are. But then underneath there, you got a little fire. You poke a little fire, poke a little here. Yeah. So that's Grant. Tonight, and both of them had talked to me earlier. Ranked voting is something Oregonians will be voting on in this upcoming election. First of all, Ed, what is ranked voting for people who are in Montana or other places, or even in Oregon? Because I have a feeling there's a lot of people in Oregon who are going, oh, a new way of voting. That sounds good. And I heard on the commercial, they said it's going to make my vote count. I'll vote for that.
That's about as deep as, I hope that's not as deep as most voters go.
But what is ranked voting?
Yeah, ranked choice voting is, are you getting an echo there, Rick?
No.
Okay. I don't know what that is. Let me turn this down a little bit. But ranked choice voting is going to be implemented via Measure 117. That's what's on the ballot.
Okay.
And that would bring ranked choice voting statewide to certain elected positions. The governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General, U.S. Congressperson, U.S. Senate, I think Bureau of Labor and Industries. Interestingly, and I'd love to talk to you about this, not state reps and not state senators.
So why do they leave you guys out?
Well, let's talk that story here in a little bit.
Okay. I always get ahead of myself, but I'm that guy,
But what ranked choice voting does, basically, is allows you to rank the candidates in order of preference. So envision a ballot with all the candidates listed, and then a rank: first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice, and so on. And you can rank. You mark down who you want as who would be your first choice, your second choice. On typically they allow 6 choices, even if there's 40 candidates like are going to show up on the Portland ballot. Portland's implementing ranked choice voting for the first time this election cycle. And so you rank your choices, and then it goes through multiple rounds of tabulation. And the way that works is they look at the first choice picks. They just gather all the ballots, look at the first.
So Ed Deal's number 1.
Ed's number 1.
Grant Johnson's number 2.
And then Rick's the last vote.
I'm number 3.
Yeah, you're
always at the end of the pile.
The last place vote gets disqualified. That candidate is disqualified from the election, and they're out. So those ballots, everybody that voted for Rick, they look and see who their second choice was.
Okay.
And their second choice, in this case, we had the 3 candidates. Their second choice was either Ed or Grant or nobody. So they take those second choices, they add them to Ed's total and Grant's total, and then they look at the total again. And whoever has a majority of the remaining votes is the winner. Now, you can imagine with multiple candidates, you can do that multiple cycles. It could take 5 or 6 cycles to get to a majority.
So
And yeah,
what's the big? Why is that an advantage? It seems to me like you're throwing out votes. Why not just say first,
well,
second, third? You know what I mean?
yeah, there's a whole, I don't like it at all. There's a whole bunch of issues, but the proponents will tell you a few things. One, they'll tell you that it always leads to a majority vote. That's only true if you redefine what majority means.
Right.
The other thing is it says it eliminates the spoiler effect. So you know what the spoiler effect is, like the election we had for governor, we had Tina Kotek, Christine Drazen, and then Betsy Johnson was the independent. And the spoiler effect means, hey, I'd really like to vote for that Betsy Johnson, but there's no way she can win. So I better vote for my second choice to make sure that she wins.
Right.
That they will claim that it eliminates the spoiler effect. It does not eliminate the spoiler effect. There's some other things they will talk that it gets rid of the two-party system. That's a big goal of theirs. That it increases transparency. I don't see how in the world this increases transparency. They will claim that it leads. Some will say this, that it leads to more moderate candidates. It'll drive candidates to more meet in the middle. There's no evidence of that.
That didn't make sense to me. How does that get rid of? Because you could still have 4 people running, too far left, too far right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't guarantee anything.
No, it really doesn't. In fact, there's good evidence to show you that it could lead to more extreme candidates. And I've been studying this issue and looking at how that scenario would play out. In fact, I just did a blog post on my website, eddeal.com, EDDIEHL.com. And there you can see I lay out a scenario that shows exactly that. And it just has to do with the way that the votes are tallied. You can end up with a candidate that would win in a head-to-head competition with another candidate because every voter favored, or most voters favored them over another candidate.
Well, didn't this
the way the rounds work? If they could get eliminated in the first round, and a lot of voters' second choice for them would never be considered, and so the other candidate that would have lost to them in a head-to-head competition wins.
Isn't this what happened to Sarah Palin in Alaska? That it was so messed up. They had ranked voting, and not whether you're a fan of Sarah or not, it doesn't matter. It was that she really should have won, and the way this worked out, that's what I understood.
I think you're close to that. What they had is they had Sarah Palin, I think it was Bagich, and then I can't remember her name. It's not Povich. It's Poltich, the Democrat up there. And what happened, I think, in every head-to-head competition, Bagich would have beat the Democrat. But what happened through the rounds, the Republicans basically split their vote.
Right.
Not everybody ranked the candidates, and you end up having a Democrat who, in a state where they had 120-some thousand Republican voters and 70-some thousand Democrat voters, you end up with a Democrat winning the
election. Which is highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely. And it's because they had 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat in their jungle primary conclusion. 1 Democrat dropped out. And right now in Alaska, believe it or not, the way their jungle primary works, you end up with 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Well, one of the Democrats dropped out in this go around. So it left, or one of the Republicans did, it left 1 Democrat. Or no, it left 2 Democrats. They brought in the 5th place person, which is another Democrat. And so now the Democrats are going to court arguing, take that person off because voting is too complicated and you're going to dilute votes to another Democrat. It's a hilarious argument that they're
So
making.
it could come back to bite them in the ass, is what we're saying.
It will, because they know this is the thing, though. They know this is it's a flaw with ranked choice voting. It's not with ranked choice voting with instant runoff. In the United States, it's known as ranked choice voting, but it's a well documented flaw. Everybody knows about it. So you got to ask, well, why would people be dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into this to prop it up? Well, who's dumping the money in? It's
Who
not
is it?
the voters. It's far left activists that are putting this money in. They're not interested in electing people that are more in the middle, more Republican. They're
Right.
interested in electing Green Party activists. I mean, that's one of the supporters here is the Green Party. They're the Democrat Socialists. They're interested in electing activists, and they're going to take advantage of this weakness in Oregon. We're going to get more extreme.
So, Grant, you brought this whole thing up to me. So why is this so concerning to you?
Well, first of all, if you can't explain how this works, there's a real problem with that. And I am Joe Voter out here. And it's complicated, I think, enough already as it is, being that I don't think that we have 100% confidence in our voting system as it is,
Yeah.
as in, you know, the integrity of it all. And you still have people out there saying that we do not have any voter fraud or any integrity problems or anything like that. But now you want to add another layer onto this where that you already see where it's leaning, and you have no way of explaining it. Now, I've looked at all 30 some slides multiple times that Rep Deal put out for us, and I still don't get it. I can't explain it myself. Now, how are you going to take a populace of Oregon who does not understand it, and then you've got people of all age groups to participate in this, and you're thinking that you're going to get a good result from this? I don't have confidence in that.
Okay, so you're Grant the voter. You're just Joe Voter out there.
Yeah.
So do you ever kind of ask yourself, why are people in especially places like Oregon? Because here in Montana, we still vote in person. We are people. A lot of us are voting ahead of time because that we got to play the game, which actually kind of ticks me off because I loved, since I moved to Montana from Oregon, I get to go to the poll. I see people. I give them my ID, which is my question. Why do you think people have so much problem with voter identification? Remember when we used to have Blockbuster movie places? I'd go in there, and to rent a movie, I had to show identification. I had to give them my driver's license or something equivalent in order to rent a $2 movie. And yet people in Oregon and other states are ticked off thinking, you shouldn't have to show ID. I mean, to rent a movie, to entertain myself, and here it is to vote for somebody, and you don't even require a driver's license to back up who somebody is. I find that just bizarre. It's not racist. I know they love to scream racism, but now Oregon doesn't require identification in order to vote. And now Ed and Grant, you guys have a huge issue in your state because over 300, and I think they found another 150 more undocumented people. So people living in Oregon, either illegally or legally living there, but not a citizen, and they're on the voter rolls. And the governor's now starting to freak out and go, oh, maybe we better look at this. And I know the Republicans are calling for an audit and to figure this out. But Ed, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It is the tip of the iceberg. And the frustrating thing is, I've been pinging the Secretary of State on this issue, and I'm a new guy. I've been in there a couple of years. Some of my counterparts, Representative Wall and Representative Scharf and others, have been asking these issues for years, and we're just told, oh, everything's fine. Well, they're not even looking. They're not even looking for a problem. And if you don't look for the problem, you're not going to find it. This has been my issue from the beginning. If I can look at a system, I'm a systems engineer.
Oh, are you seriously? That's trouble.
Yeah. And I look at a system, and you can identify where there are weaknesses in that. Well, you don't wait for it to break. You fix it. And this system is really weak. We know we have a lot of undocumented people entering the state. We have more and more non-U.S. citizens in the state, but yet to register to vote in Oregon, you check a box that says you're a citizen.
That's it. So nobody has to prove it.
We are an attestation state. We do not ask for it to be proven.
What the hell is that?
Well, you know what? I'll bet you, Rick, back when this was put together, I'll bet you Republicans and Democrats were both fine with it because we trusted each other. But that's not the case anymore. And but that is the system. Now, the only check that we have in our process is at the DMV. The DMV is supposed to be verifying citizenship before they do their motor voter and register that person to vote. But clearly, they've been messing up on that. They have not done it correctly. And they're trying to, they think it's related to some change in the software system that they.
Oh, bullshit.
I'm not convinced of that. But the real thing, you hit on it. Why would you resist cleaning voter rolls? Why would you insist on not checking ID? California just passed a law, I think, that says you're not allowed to check ID.
Yeah, I saw Newsom
do that.
Why would people put up with that? Like, as a citizen of this country or a state, why would you put up with? I mean, we all want voter. Maybe that's really the answer. And Grant is maybe people don't really. I think what we've come down to, and is the far left just wants to win no matter what. I think it's been like that for a long time. It's like, you know what? We're doing this for your own good, and you'll benefit from this. So shut up, and we're going to do it.
Why else would you want people that want ballots out there that nobody's associated with, that nobody's ever voted on or used for voting? And also, why would you not check for ID when you vote? Why would you not check for ID when you register to vote and be adamantly opposed to it? And why would you resist attempts to clean your voter roll? Judicial Watch is in the process, I think, of suing Oregon over this.
Wow.
Because they're in violation of the Voting Rights Act, according to Judicial Watch. And go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in here,
and then I'm doing all the talking.
Joe Voter again here is from the perspective that I have, just being in Oregon for the last about 3 years. Major change from the Oregon that I left back in 1978, and I have purposefully asked a lot of people in the last few months what they know about ranked choice voting. We had the star voting agenda that was going on here in Eugene. So you have two completely different types of setups. But if you ask the average Joe voter what it is that they are promoting and that they're for, they can't explain it either. And that's a huge problem here. All the people that I've talked to, they don't know what we're voting on November 5th. And so it seems to me, like, back to your question, how did this come about? Is because Joe voters like myself are not paying attention.
Right.
So when the way I see it is, it's easy to get through that election. And so off we send Representative Deal off to represent us. And actually, Ed is not even my state representative. It's just that I see a man that's out there working, plugging in, and putting this out here and spending a whole lot of time with this. And yet I also see a whole lot of people that are just not paying attention. So I think the average Joe voter like myself needs to get behind our representatives instead of sending them off and expecting miracles. I think we ought to say, hey, what can I do to help you? And so that's the reason that I've plugged in here, because I see this as such an absolute atrocity. And I think that there's probably a much larger big plan behind all this, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist. So,
I used to not be, but you know what I found out, that conspiracy theories really aren't. That's like critical thinking. So when you think of something's a conspiracy, it's because you're critically thinking and trying to figure out if it's not a conspiracy. Here in Montana, we have a bill 128, measure 128, which would make it so that kids that are 13 could get an abortion without their parents' notification. Now, what I found out from talking with a group we had on a couple of weeks ago is this really isn't about the abortion issue, but they want to make sure they keep Senator Tester in office, and they know that people who would vote for Tester would also vote for an abortion bill. So all this money is coming in from outside the state. No one from inside the state's funding this thing to get people to the vote, to the ballot, to save. So here's all these people thinking, oh, that we're standing up for the women's rights, and really what this is an attempt to get Tester reelected. And that's how people fall for this stuff, because they don't understand the intricacies of what's going on. And in Oregon, Grant, do you ever feel like, I mean, you're like the test ground for every stupid thing that comes along? I mean, hey, let's see if we can get people to all have to own a chimp, And so, here's all the good reasons to own a chimp. And so they put it in Oregon to see, hey, let's see if the Oregonians will bite for this. And Oregonians are not like that, but for some reason there's this, they're easily sold on ballot titles because of the way your system works. The titles don't have to be clear. And so people end up reading this and going, oh yeah, measure 110. We can get drug addicts off drugs. And all measure 110 did was put more people on the streets, put more drug addicts out there, never did anything that it said it was going to do. And it's been a cluster screw.
Some of my friends have called measure 117 the ballot measure 110 of elections.
Really?
Because the funding, we can't tell exactly where the funding's coming from because they're funneling it through a C4. But based on what we know in other states, it's a bunch of out-of-state money. Just last week, they dumped $1 million into the Yes on 117. They'd already, through this C4, dumped about $600,000. There was a $200,000 check recently from some activist group in DC, some other money from New York. So why are all these outside interests so interested in how Oregonians vote?
Why are they, do you think, if you speculate?
Because of the reason I was describing. They know this system has a flaw, and they intend to exploit that flaw.
But why do they always pick Oregon for a lot of things?
Because we're fairly progressive, we're a smaller population, we're a cheap state to run an experiment in.
Oh, that's it.
That's why.
Because do you really, when you hear the word progressive, doesn't that mean to progress, like to do better? I always find it hard. I find it hard when people criticize the progressive movement, because I think I call it the alleged progressives, because I find it regressive. And I think, people keep saying we won't go back. And it's like, I don't want to go back. I want to progress, not be progressive. And it's words, because I was a journalist, words really matter. And I think go ahead.
No, you're right. It should be a good thing. But I think what it's turned into in Oregon is, oh, hey, that sounds like a cool idea. Let's give it a shot. Portland, is doing ranked choice voting in a way that nobody's ever done in the whole world.
Well, good luck.
There's not even an agreed upon method to audit it, but they're doing it anyway.
Did you, now the good thing is I know star voting. I had one of the founders of that on a show back on the last election in Eugene, and it failed miserably. Because I think there's this part of Oregonians that if you push too far, they get a little hesitant. Wow. You know what I mean? It's like, I think it's interesting because we were the first to have the bottle bill, and we, first to open beaches under Tom McCall, and all these first things that were really, but I think we got to this point, we thought, well, we're ahead of our game. And yet then you get to to gassing up your own car. and they pass it. But now most of the gas stations when I'm there, they'll still fill it up anyway, because most Oregonians don't want to get out of their car and fill it. When all 48 other states do it that way. It's just a really interesting. So do you think people will buy the message, or do you think this is one of those things like opening the primary that scares them because they don't really know what it means and they'll just vote it out?
What happened with star voting, Rick, and Grant, you live in that area. The ranked choice voting people came in with, I think, 200 grand to defeat it.
Oh, because
they opposed each other.
They opposed it. And you know why?
No.
Because the star voting people, some of them anyway, were at one time ranked choice voting advocates, realized the flaws, the vast number of flaws, not only in the vote scenario I described, but how the tallying process has to be managed. And they said, this is a step backwards. So, but we want reform. And so they've come up with something they feel is better, and that's star voting.
You know, now that you say that, that's exactly what Mark Frohnmeyer, he's.
Oh yeah, I know Mark.
Mark's a great guy. And he came up with that because he and I have been against the been supportive of the open primary ever since forever.
Yeah.
And so we have that in common. So he brought star voting out, but he even said on the show that ranked voting is not fair. It doesn't work.
No, it's not fair. It disenfranchises voters. And I think there's a really good argument that it violates the Bill of Rights, Oregon's Bill of Rights, Article 1, Section 20, which guarantees, it's our own equal protection clause, our equivalent. Very strong language.
So
yeah,
you guys, this is kind of off. This is off center of the conversation here, but it all relates. Don't worry, don't get panicked or anything like that. But
it's your show, Rick.
It's my show. I feel like people are waking up, and I'm not in Oregon right now. And Montana, we're getting the same influences coming into Montana, with these abortion measures and some of this stuff like that. But I feel like I feel like with COVID, they pushed too far, especially Oregon pushed too far, and people, went, okay, wait a minute. They went along for a while, but then pulling back. And I feel like with presidential stuff, with all this, people are starting to go, what happened to my right as a citizen? And so then you see all these illegal folks coming over, undocumented people voting, and you're going, wait a minute. Where's my Oregon? Where's my country? Where's my Montana? And it's not nationalism. It's just saying, this is where, when I go to Italy, I just got back from Italy. When I went to Italy, those people are proud to be Italians. You know what I mean? You go to France and it's like, I am, there's a little snottiness about I am French, and why can't we as Americans be proud to be Americans? And I think people are starting to go, wait a minute. I love this country. And yeah, I'm proud when I go to another country to be an American. And I have nothing to be ashamed of. And I think they're tired of the messaging. They're tired of the hopelessness. I see all kinds of hope in people. I don't see, I heard somebody saying to me the other day, yeah, we're at odds more than we've ever been. Well, go back and look at the revolution. We're not. I think there's a lot of conversations going on. Yeah, I think there's a lot of frustration, but I think that's what wakes people up. And I think the problem is that a bunch of the woke people, they woke up the rest of us. Woke is not a bad thing all the time. When you woke up,
Oregon's a little bit unique, I think, where I'm from Eastern Oregon.
Whereabouts? Just out of curiosity.
Hermiston is where my wife and I grew up, and
I can tell you look like a watermelon kind of guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have that watermelon look. I've been told that for sure. I sure have eaten enough of it to look like it for sure. But those people over there, I think, in general, are paying attention. But there's just a huge mentality difference between the two ends of the state, and bringing that divide together is really challenging with the mentality we have over here on this end.
Well, I've had the Greater Idaho movement folks on tons of times, and I know they've been trying to get a meeting with your governor to talk about, because more than 13 counties or 26 counties in Oregon, right? No, 36. And I think a huge portion of Eastern Oregon has voted to look into it further, to join Idaho, to get out, to change Oregon's borders and move into Idaho.
Mhm.
So whether people agree with that or not, the most adamant people I hear are people out of the Portland area going, they can't have our Oregon. Well, you're not listening to them. And most of those people in Eastern Oregon have families that have been there for 150 to 200 years. And you're a newcomer from California, shut the hell up. And you're running how they work. But my point here being, the governor hasn't even addressed it. If you had a movement going on in your state, wouldn't you be going, I probably need to be in the eastern half of the state talking to these people to find out what we're not doing? But they don't care.
Right. No, it's sad. That is sad. But Rick, on your point that maybe people have had enough and they are waking up, I do feel even on this side of the mountains that people are waking up. I hope there's enough of them. I've talked to a number of Democrats who are going to vote Republican for the first time in their life.
Yeah,
for a number of reasons. They can't vote for a party that's taken their free speech rights away or wants to take their free speech rights away. They can't vote for a party that doesn't understand the difference between a man and a woman. There's a number of things that are just, it's a bridge too far.
I think when they take away a parent's rights to have a say in a 13-year-old's abortion, I mean, that's like a major procedure on someone's life, or breast removal or whatever else. I mean, it's like,
I want clean air and I want clean water just like everybody, but my utility prices went up 20% last year and they're going to go up another big chunk this year. I can't handle it anymore.
Well,
they're spending 10 grand more on average a year than they were, I think, 4 years ago. Grant, did you read that article?
No, I need to get that, but I've seen that for sure.
Yeah. We have a power company here that I'm involved with, and I do some work in Montana with them, and they're talking about removing the Snake River dams.
Yes,
5 of them, and and because of the native issues, which I have nothing. I work really well with the native people, but they're going to take down those dams, and it's going to cost even Montana people like myself here in Montana. We're going to pay because we get power from that. So you're removing dams for political reasons, and I think what the problem is, a lot of people do is they don't pay attention to this stuff, and then they hear whatever tickles their fancy, and then they go for that. Well, I'm a good person because I'm removing those dams. Well, do good people impoverish people even more because they can't afford their electric bills?
Yeah.
And it's never the upper class who pays for this kind of stuff. It's always the poor and the middle class that's going to pay for this. And if you think that's different than that, you're a fool.
Well, and that's why I really think we've seen a shift in the party alignment.
Right.
The party alignment, the working class people are aligned with Republicans.
Isn't that weird?
Maybe the union leadership is Democrat, but the union workers are Republican.
Well, and they're all. It's really interesting because I think and I'm not trying to put you in a shoe or anything like that, but it's like for me, I ran as a Republican, but I'm not a hardcore Republican at all. And I think that the labels are failing to stick anymore. It's because what I want, I'm more conservative because what I want is I really want true help for people on the streets. I want compassion for people who are drug addicted. I want energy prices that make it so that my neighbors and my kids can afford to heat their homes and are not dependent on somebody else. I want good jobs for people. That used to be the far left, what I enjoyed about. Well, my joke is when I moved to Eugene, Oregon 30 years ago, even more than that, a crappy Volvo with bumper stickers that said, "Don't trust the government, don't trust big pharma, kill your television." That was a Democrat. Now that's a Republican, and the Democrats have been big pharma. They've completely switched. And I think it's taken a long time, but I think people are starting to finally see
I think they are finally connecting their vote, who they voted for, with the outcomes. Right. And once they start doing that, they're going to go, hey, we need more balance in this state.
So, but Grant, are you surprised by, like, even nationwide, how quickly we gave up our freedom? And that's almost like the new F word. If you say freedom, then you're a MAGA, which I don't understand why making America great again is a bad thing. But, you know, my new things, I'm a MOHO too. I'm a MAHA, make America healthy again.
Oh, yeah.
And then I heard Roseanne Barr say the other day, a mama, she's a mama, make America moral again.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
So I could be a mama. I bet I could figure out I could make a mega mama, yeah. And I could be a papa. I'll find something for peas. I'll get those out there.
I think you both know I ran for the school board here, Eugene 4J district, and I learned a lot. I learned probably more than I probably was looking for, actually. And when you're talking about this shift, we're also having to pay attention that there is information that's fed into young people today. And then so you see this progressive type of wave happening. And what I was talking about back then is that Oregon, in the educational excellence level, we're and the state in itself is among the top level states that are failing in education, failing in a lot of things, and corporations
spending the most on education.
You know, back me up, Ed. It's true. There's a lot of businesses having to leave. They just can't pay to be here. But it comes down to what we have allowed the education system to be feeding into our young people. And it's this indoctrination thing that's happening. And of course, that does get out into conspiracy theories as well. But a lot of the things that we're talking about, young people are not agreeing with. And we had a good conversation with a young guy that heads up the high school Republicans for the state. And you know, there is a remnant, but I don't think that they're in the majority. And I think that's something that we really have to think about is what type of education are we paying for these young folks? What indoctrination are they getting? Why is it that they're afraid to put the American flag in the classroom because they're afraid of the American flag and what it represents? It's really very concerning what young people are learning, and they're our future, and we have to face that.
Well, I found when I was in Eugene too that a lot of the people that were concerned about that kind of stuff are not right-wing MAGA Republicans. I mean, there's people in that party as well, but a lot of the people that are homeschooling now because they don't want the schools indoctrinating their children are hippies. They're the people who they don't necessarily believe in God or the USA as you and I might, but these are people who are concerned for their children and want them to decide for themselves. And that used to be how America was, is you didn't pay, you gave information and then let people decide. And I think we need to get back to that because it's you know what, when I was a news guy, that's what you did. You presented both sides of a story, and then you trusted that people would do the best that they could with that information. Well, the media now has just lost that whole idea. And now it's like, here's what's right. We're going to center our stories on that and push this propaganda agenda. And they see it as news, but what it is they're not giving people a balance of what's going on. And even when I was in the business, there was a liberal balance, a liberal shift. You know what I mean? It was obvious as, the three Republicans in our newsroom. And my news director used to say, well, that's why you're here. You guys are going to balance us off. And I'm like, oh yeah, 30 people and 3 people are going to have a big say in what's going on. But now I think you wouldn't have any say because it's so much about they determine what's right and wrong, and then they create the message to make us, that this is the right thing to do. When, I hear Bill Nye, the science guy, like, who the hell is he? He's got an engineering degree, and he's coming out and saying, you got to vote for the candidate of climate change because it's destroying the world. He doesn't have a degree in climate or anything related to it. He's an actor who puts on a little outfit and looks like a scientist. It's like, and And people believe this. It's like,
People believe
no.
We're not teaching kids critical thinking anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm casting a broad brush. Some kids are coming out with those skills, but in general, I think that there's much more of I call it indoctrination, where, okay, these are my ideals, and I'm going to make sure that these kids coming out of here share these activist ideals, instead of, teaching them of like core truths and core values, and let the kids make decisions based upon this kind of foundation of knowledge that we've built up for centuries. And
shouldn't it
that's
be
kind of being tossed aside because of a number of reasons.
Do you remember?
And not to forget, along with what you're saying, there is that the sovereignty of this nation, that whole concept is melting away.
That's why we came here. Our forefathers came here to start this country so that we could ask questions, and so that we could have, that I remember my dad, he was a speech teacher, but I remember him saying there aren't always right and wrong answers. And so but now there is a right answer and there's a wrong answer, rather than going, what if there's something in between? And that is what gets me to the truth, rather than right now we've defined, here's what the truth is and here's how you get there, rather than here's the questions and funnel your way on the journey to get to the truth. And I think that's what's scary to me, is that, like during COVID, that people were not even, wait a minute, how come one day they're telling us to wear a mask and the next day they're telling us it doesn't work, and then they tell us it works? And you go, that doesn't raise a question in your mind that says, maybe they don't know what they're talking about. And still today, because I said that, I will get comments on this page and name calling and that kind of stuff, because you're asking questions. And for me, my parents, it's always said there's no stupid questions. So I ask a lot of questions that probably come across stupid.
It really, you asked the question a bit ago, the how we were so compliant with those demands from the state really made me uncomfortable. I said, what has happened to us?
Right.
That all the medical professionals marched down in line, and not all of them, but most of them, instead of critically looking at the advice they were being given.
Right.
Then to hear leaders come out recently saying, well, we have to do something about this free speech thing. The First Amendment is causing a problem.
Yeah.
I said, what?
I mean, that should cause every red-blooded American and blue-blooded American to stand up and go, no, you are not. You are not.
You guys do not share my values.
No.
And we have to fight against that. And so I feel optimistic that people are coming around, and I wouldn't be doing this stupid job if I didn't think that.
Well, and doesn't this take us back to our topic, is ranked voting takes away, again, some of that freedom of speech and the democracy that the Democrats keep pushing. And, when you say one thing and do something else, you need to be very aware that something is up. And if voters in Oregon want to really have voter integrity, one, you should instantly implement some kind of program where you have to have identification to get that mail-in ballot. And if that can't happen, then get away from mail-in ballots. And I know that's a strong push in Oregon. But you've got to find a way to make it so that is a case. And then number two is get back to letting people ask and say whatever they want. I always find that so weird, is why is that so threatening to people when I question their information? And it's like, there's a guy in Trump's having some kind of one of his, what are they? Big
rallies.
Big rallies at Madison Square Garden at the end of the month. Well, a state senator from New York is now calling on Madison Square Garden to shut it down, and saying, don't let him do this because he's like Hitler. And Hitler had one back in 1939 or something. And you're going, oh my God. So you're going to, what if it was me and Kamala is going to have a rally somewhere? I just don't go. I don't care. I'm not threatened by her.
She'd have
having
to
a
bus them in
rally.
from someplace else, but
No, it's like, have your rally. I don't care. We'll meet you at the ballot box. But it's like that people are so afraid. That tells me a lot.
Rick, can I put in a plug here before we run out of time? Talk about ranked choice.
No, you can't.
Okay, well, let me shut this off then.
Go
See,
ahead.
guys,
Go ahead, Grant. No, go ahead.
For everybody that's listening, I want to put a plug in for the 16th of October this month. There is going to be an event, an online event, where Senator or Representative Deal and Senator Solman will.
Yep.
Sorry about that. The event is all about ranked choice voting, and each of them are going to be able to have a certain amount of time to talk pro and con. This is sponsored by, put on by Braver Angels. And what you can do is you can go to braverangels.org and register for that. And that way they're going to allow so many in. So they're going to have their time to talk pro and con. And then the rest of us are going to break out. We're going to come back with questions for both of them. It's going to be a great event, and it's free. Just go out and register for this, October 16th.
So, Grant, this is going to air the day after that. So let me ask you this. Is it going to be available that people can go watch it afterwards online?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay.
So. I'm not absolutely sure. I'll have to
Yeah,
ask.
Ed said,
I believe they will record it. I think that's what I've seen in the past, Grant.
I
Okay.
hope so.
So go look for that. So that's an opportunity to do that.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Hey, you guys, I don't know. That was super fun.
Yeah.
Isn't it nice just to get on and not have to? I think, you know what it's doing for me is I'm balls to the wall. I just don't care anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, and you know, people write me and say hate things, and I'm going, hey, that's fine. You know, my mom told me a long time ago, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But it's like, just throw it out there, and the ideas, and I feel like there's this kind of burgeoning thing that's boiling. And I don't feel like, it's some lady wrote on my page the other day, we're so apart, I can't believe it. And I said, that's a good thing. That's all right. So if we can come together and come to places where we go, oh, we'll never agree on that, but we could agree on this.
Yeah.
Then we start building some wall, you know, tearing down the wall.
I myself, I finally had this revelation that not everybody is going to agree with me, and not everybody is going to like me, and that's just fine.
It's just
okay.
fine.
It's okay.
Well, Ed learned that when he ran for office.
Yeah, I learned that. Yeah, I get more. I actually don't get a lot of hate mail, but I do get it now. I never got it before.
You're kind of a likable dude, you know.
No,
and besides,
I try to
he
be.
is, Durant. The real
Ed Deal for governor. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I got the slogan already.
Yeah, you know, and that's and the check.
Are already planned
and the check for that, just $2,500. Just send it to Rick at rickdancer.com.
Right.
We'll get that all cut. I'll have my people get a hold of you for that.
Wait a minute, that was my idea.
You know, there's always somebody that wants it. You are a typical guy that's just okay. Grant, I'll bring you in for a little bit. Okay.
I know you're coming to Eugene too, so I know where to find you.
Ed Deal, thank you for doing what you do to represent the state of Oregon.
Absolutely.
And common sense. Grant, thanks for what you do as being Joe Voter. I think a lot more Joe Voters need to come do shows like this, because we hear a lot about what Joe Voter thinks, but we don't hear it from Joe Voter. You know, we get that media synopsis. So thank you both. And we will talk to you guys soon.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, Rick.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Later. All right, you guys. So here's what you can do. I mean, you know, I know a lot of people get really frustrated and they feel like they're not doing anything. Vote. God, you know what? You know how many people don't even vote? So they get this thing where it says 50% turnout. Ooh, that's great. 50% of Oregonians turned out. That's 50% of the people who are registered to vote. And you know how many people aren't registered to vote? About that. So a quarter to a third of the people actually voting or are registered to vote are actually deciding for everybody else. You're allowing them to make a decision for you because you don't pay attention to politics. Well, guess what? Politics is paying attention to you. You want your electric bills to go up? Keep that attitude. You want somebody else to decide what you're going to do? Keep that attitude. You want somebody else to take your job? Keep that attitude, because you have to be involved. I'm so tired of people going, I'm voting for Kamala because she seems nice. And it's like, well, do you know anything about her? Have you checked? Have you done any research? Well, no, because I just don't like Donald Trump. And it's like, so you're voting for the future of our country because you just heard somebody say they don't like Donald Trump. And I don't care if you vote for Trump or Kamala. Well, I kind of do, but you know what I mean? But that's your decision. I would respect your decision. Would I agree with it? No. It's kind of like people wearing masks today. I want to go up and say, are you not reading the literature that says that doesn't work? But I respect that they have their opinion and they get to do what they want to do. So at least vote, inform yourself, and find out what the hell you're doing. And the next time somebody comes up to you in Oregon and says, here's an idea to protect puppies in the future, and it sounds so good, read before you sign the dumb thing. Because some of the, remember Measure 110? We decided that thing. We got fooled. Okay. Fool me once, shame on me, or shame on you. Fool me twice, it's my problem. All right, share this on your page, because believe it or not, YouTube and the social media channels, they don't really like what we talk about. But guess what? I have enough of you out there who share it. It doesn't matter what they think. All right, see you next week. Oh, and check out our Truth About Timber series. That will open your eyes. Good night.